Hi, boys and girls. This is Miss Forbes. I'm coming to you from my mom's house. So if a cat does pop up, which probably will happen, his name is Hedwig. It's my mom's cat, and he's still named after Harry Potter characters. But it's today is St. Patrick's Day. Also, I call it Leprechaun Day. So I wanted to read you a leprechaun story. It's called Jamie O'Rourke and the Giant Potato, or the Big Potato. My bad. I realize you can't really read it. It's backwards, but I will read it to you, and I will show you the pictures. I do try to get an Irish accent. Just try to bear with it, okay? Now, Jamie O'Rourke is an Irish folktale. Ireland is a country. It's not too far from England, and they have a man that they honor. His name is St. Patrick. So it's going to talk about saints and Mary, and that's just people and their culture, okay? All right, enjoy. I love this one. Jamie O'Rourke was the laziest man in all of Ireland. He would do anything to avoid working, especially if it had to do with growing potatoes. There he is. Jamie O'Rourke, his wife Eileen would say, we'll have nothing to eat this winter if you don't go out and dig up the praties. Oh, the saints preserve us, Jamie would whine. Me back's as sore as can be, and I'm telling you, wife, you'll have to dig them up yourself. I'll break into two if I so much get up out of this bed. So Eileen, who had done all the planting and the watering and the weeding anyhow, would go out to the tiny garden and dig up the smallest potatoes in all of Ireland, all because Jamie was too lazy to dig a larger garden and had no money to buy good potato seed. Poor Eileen. Then poor Eileen wrenched her back, she hurt herself, and was laid up in bed. St. Bridget and Mary herself must have smiled on Eileen O'Rourke, the village woman said. Why, it is the first rest she's had since she's married Jamie O'Rourke. With Eileen in bed, Jamie began to worry. No Eileen to dig meant no praties. Praties is the word for potatoes. And no winter, and no praties meant no food. Oh, poor me, wailed Jamie. I'll starve to death. I'd best go to church and confess to Father O'Malley. There's no telling how soon old death will be knocking on me door. So, even though it was midnight, Jamie set out for the church. He was about halfway down the hill when he heard singing and a tap, tap, tapping sound. What's making that sound? Sure, and wouldn't I be knowing, Jamie whispered. But I swear it's a leprechaun. And sure enough, sitting in the circle of ferns in the moonlight was a leprechaun, singing and hammering tiny nails into the heels of the fairy boots he was making. Jamie knew just what to do. He crept up and grabbed the little man by his coattails and held him firm. Let me go, the leprechaun shouted. Not on your life, Jamie said. Not until you show me where you keep your pot of gold. Now everyone in Ireland knows that leprechauns make boots and dancing shoes for the fairies, who pay them with gold. And everyone knows that if you catch a leprechaun, he'll pay for his freedom with his pot of gold. But this leprechaun was cleverer than most. Oh, please, Mr. Mortal Man, he pleaded. I'm just starting out making fairy shoes, and I only have 1 or 2 pieces of gold in my pot. Won't you take a wish instead? Why, what would I wish for? Jamie asked. Me, who's about to go die of starvation because my wife is sick in bed and can't dig up the praties for winter. And they're such puny praties anyhow. Puny means tiny. Well, the leprechaun said, reaching into his pocket, you could wish for the biggest pratie in the world. It would last all winter, and you wouldn't have to do anything more than plant this seed, water it, and wait. Think he's going to go for it? Let's see. That sounded wonderful to Jamie. Done, he shouted. And as the leprechaun dropped the seed into Jamie's hand, Jamie let go of his coattails, and off the leprechaun scampered. You think Eileen's going to be excited by this? Why, when Eileen heard what Jamie had done, she was furious. Jamie O'Rourke, you're not only the laziest man in Ireland, but a fool as well, giving up a pot of gold for a pratie seed. Well, I'm going to plant this seed and water it, and you'll see, Jamie said. And out he went. And faith Eileen did see. In no time of all, the biggest, finest potato plant had sprouted out of the garden, followed by the potato plant the finest potato plant had sprouted out of the garden, followed by the potato itself. It was so big it pushed up not only all of the dirt in the garden, but the garden shed and the corner of the cottage as well. Well, surely it's ready to dig now, Jamie said proudly. Look at that. That is a potato. Okay, and the brown stuff at the bottom is the dirt. Look at the poor dog. What's going on? He dug all around it, but he couldn't dig up the pratie out of the ground. He got a beam, a big stick, and hit a big rock and tried to pry it out. He pushed and pushed, but it wouldn't budge. As he was pondering or thinking what to do, his neighbors passed on by on his way to the village. He couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't wait to tell everyone in the village what he had seen. And before you knew it, the hill up to Jamie's was filled with villagers coming to see the big potato. Where did it come from? They asked. Jamie told them about the lucky night he had caught the leprechaun, and how smart he had been. Why, anyone could have gotten a pot of gold, he bragged, but the biggest pratie in the world? That took some doing. However, did you outsmart a leprechaun? They all asked at once. Jamie hesitated, which means he paused, and scratched his head. We'll help you dig up your pratie, Jamie, if you tell us how you did it. And they grabbed their shovels and started to dig. Apparently I'm popular right now. Let me turn that off. They dug and they dug and they pushed and they shoved until the potato flew up out of its hole. It rolled down the hill faster and faster until it reached the bottom, where it bounced up high and came to a stop wedged between the stone walls on either side of the road. What to do now? That pratie is so big that no cart, nothing can get by it, the constable complained to the Father O'Malley. How's anybody to get in or out of the village? What shall we do? The villagers wailed. Then they looked at Jamie and said, It's your pratie. Well, you'll have to move it out of our way. Well, Eileen spoke up, there's more than enough pratie for everyone. Why don't you all take some? Oh, sharing is caring. So the villagers sawed and chopped and carted off huge pieces of potato while Jamie sat on the stone wall and watched. He really is a lazy fella. And all winter long, everyone had potato to eat and eat and eat until no one wanted to see or hear of potato again. I mean, look at how their faces change. I know there's a bit of a glare. In the spring, Jamie said, I saved a potato eye for the seed, and it's just about time to plant it. Oh, no, the villagers wailed. If you promise not to plant it, Jamie, we'll promise before St. Patrick and all the saints to see that you and Eileen always have plenty to cook and eat. We don't want another giant pratie around here. Jamie smiled and agreed. And what a perfect life for a lazy man. And so you see, darling Eileen, Jamie told her, I wasn't such a fool with that leprechaun after all. And Eileen had to admit that Jamie O'Rourke was right. Ready? Oh, the leprechaun lied. Oh, tricky little leprechaun. So, boys and girls, I miss you. Miss Camilla, Miss Laracy, we miss you as well. Take care of yourself. Remember to wash your hands. 20 seconds. Imperial March. Happy birthday twice. Frozen, let it go. The chorus. Make sure you get your thumbs. Remember our TikTok that we watched. And, if you want, you could always write your own leprechaun story. Look up how to spell leprechaun. That is a word that is tricky. Maybe I'll be back later this week. I'll read some Wayside School. I grabbed it while I was at school today. All right. Take care. Bye.